has become very important. Though we generally talk of it from Magna Carta, when King John of England, he agreed to certain rights of those days agitating barons, and then English Bill of Rights somewhere, then somewhere American Bill of Rights, and somewhere French Declaration of Rights of Man, and then ultimately we find that we adopted the UN Charter in 1945, and then in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. What for all this is obvious, because two reasons are most prominent. If you want life with certainty, peace, dignity, then definitely the human rights have to be respected. Human rights of everybody and human rights of every group have to be respected. Then you can expect peace. And that's why if you read the UN Charter of 1945, which gave birth to United Nations, you'll find that it is dominant with the declarations and favors and oaths, commitments to the human rights. And I would say the basic purpose, if any, of UN is that is the advancement and protection of human rights. And then after a few years, 3 years, when in 1948, 10th December, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted with 30 articles. It did underline the basic rights of human beings, with the hope that the human life shall become the life worth to be lived. The human life shall become dignified in the real sense of the term. Everybody feels at peace. And then when we look to the result of it, this document proved a very fine source for so many treaties, agreements, declarations at the international level, that today we are having a large number of conventions, declarations, covenants, protocols, which are about the protection of human rights in different situations and human rights of different groups, vulnerable sections, right from children, women, transgenders, senior citizens, persons in conflict, prisoners in jails, both accused, criminals and others. And there are so many covenants and so many instruments which are full with descriptions of responsibilities for governments, that how governments should behave. And the main purpose is to make the life worth to be lived, to make the life to be like as it should be. And then I would say that was a great thing that it resulted in so many kinds of declarations and commitments from the humanity at the global level and also at national levels. In India, there is a full chapter on fundamental rights in the Constitution of India, and that all is a reflection of very important human rights which are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And at the same time, there is one thing that is to be noted, that unfortunately, as regards the nourishment of these rights, we find that that was not done the way it should have been done. You may be hearing every day that everybody possessing positions of authorities, they talk of development, and in development, they mostly talk of business. I would not say that business is not important. I would say business is very important. But all those trade agreements, all those universal declarations, all those conventions and covenants are containing clauses about the dignity of human beings also, about the protection of children also, about the protection of women also, about the protection of ordinary farmers also, and about the protection of all those who are in subjugation. Why? Why and why there is that lopsided endeavor that human values are not being nourished with the same concern as the business, the beer business is being talked about every day, every moment. I believe that the COVID-19 exposed it. When COVID-19 came, you had worked for development and development and development. But then where was the apparatus? Where was the structure? Where was the vehicle? Where were the arrangements to meet the exigencies of that pandemic? What all you had done, and if you had rightly nourished industry, then how could next day every employer divorce from work and divorce and lay off millions of workers, and they have to leave the workplace and go to home to rely on something that they had left decades before, scores of years before they had left? Was that the relationship between that humanitarian relationship between the capital and between labor, that they could not sustain them even for a month, 2 months, and 3 months? It was not considered. Where was that health system, health promotion system, health care system that could have attended the people who were becoming the victims of this COVID-19? The question is that here came a challenge. Your endeavor for human rights was lopsided. You had ignored them. You had not given them the equal importance. The only thing, you wanted to run the profit-making business on that. I would again say, I am not saying it should not be done. It should be done, but there should be an equitable and equitable attention paid to the human values, to the sustenance of everybody, to the sustenance of all human beings. That is equitability. And that's why just after the Second World War, it became a concern that now how the humanity is to be shaped. And if any of the best things that emerged on the horizon of humanity was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was followed by further comments about further commitments about the rights of different sections of people living in different areas with different faces, with different identities, and with different kinds of compulsions with which they are living. Having said that, I would say that this was a big mistake, and that's how anybody responsible must at any moment of time give equal weight to human values, give equal weight to humanity as such, give equal weight to dignity of another person as such when he is making his political endeavors, social elevations, then he is making his economic development and anything. And then at that time, they cannot ignore the other human beings. And if they have done it, then the result is there that you cannot go ahead alone without taking all others with you. Now, whatever it has happened now, however, there is a concern which has to be addressed now. If this was a challenge and you have put the humanity on uncertainties, how you dealt with it. I know you were deficient in means, but you should not have been deficient in wisdom. How was it done? And then we can see that at the global level, a big loss has been caused. Many sufferings are continuously taking place. People are suffering. And then the worst of it is that where is our education system standing? Where is our healthcare system now developing, and how? And then at the same time, how you are bringing humanity together, how you are developing international cooperation, then how you are developing means to resolve the conflicts which are existing in different parts of the world so that the miseries can be reduced. Where is that mechanism? How much strength has been left with United Nations and different organs of it to mitigate the horrors which have been caused by COVID and which can be caused by anything like that very soon, after some time, or any day. And at the same time, what had happened that UN had to issue the directives that nobody should use this COVID for exploiting their opponents, for exploitation of anybody. They should not attain their political ends by using the COVID as an excuse. Why they had to make this declaration? It means that among us, the human beings, many were using this COVID for political purposes as such. Tell me, dear friends, what has happened? Why today the humanity overall is not showing the sentiment of addressing the basic issues which human beings are facing? What is the future policy for having a very effective welfare system at the global level, which can reach out to anybody anywhere in any part of the world? What measures are being taken at the global level? Forget about the national level. I think there the situation is further pathetic. Where where is the thought which can unite humanity? Where is the thought that can create fraternity? Where is the thought that can make humanity one in facing different disasters? Who is there? And it may be very hard to say that probably nobody is left there at the global level to give these kinds of directions, give these kinds of advices, and provide the measures to the humanity. Having said these general things, I believe that when we go through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other human rights instruments, we find that education is there also at the top of it. I have a point that ICT saved this institution of education globally to some extent. But at the same time, don't we have the cases where the student had to commit suicide because he was not having a mobile phone? My dear friends, in the intellectual property rights, we have a doctrine. We call it compulsory licensing. When the manufacturers, patent holders are not allowing the manufacturing of anything at a large scale, which is needed because of emergency, you can use that provision of compulsory license. My question is that a mobile phone which you purchase for 16,000 rupees is done actually at an expenditure of maybe 800, 1,200 rupees. Then looking to the needs of the students here and there in the different sections of society, when can that compulsory licensing provision be used and the state gets to it that the mobile facilities provided to all the students so that they have some effective kind of education? When can that be done? And so far, I think it's not being done for medicine also. People are not able to purchase medicines to save their lives. Why that compulsory licensing is not used? And many people are directed to produce the medicine at a determined cost so that it is available to the people at a cheaper price. Earlier, somebody was earning 50,000, 1 lakh rupees a month. Now he is suffering maybe 10,000 he is earning. How can he purchase medicine? How can he purchase mobile phones for children? And how can he meet the other expenses? Is it not that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to protect the life, to give dignity to people, to make them live a healthy life, and then to be free in their expressions, and then they enjoy the freedom of speech? Was that a false promise then? Is that not natural? And it all is denied in the existing circumstance. Here is the state has a major responsibility. I may tell you again that human rights are those rights which have to be respected by the state. These are the rights against the state. And we have taken state as an entity where people go there, occupy the offices, and use the authority for the advancement of their own interests. No, state is an agency where people have to get to the offices to work for the betterment of the people. They have obligations. They owe things to people. And that's why I'm saying in 1948, when the world adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in every state, in every nation state, in every country, the focus should have been that we should develop in such a way that the people anywhere in the world enjoy the human rights the best. And if there are disasters, when there are pandemics, when there are other challenges, calamities, they must be having the mechanism in place to face it so that they do not fall down the level of dignity. The human being does not fall below the level of humanity. So the question is that the duty of the state has to be understood in its correct perspective. This is not to subjugate the people. This is not to enjoy the authority over the people. No, this is to support the people. This is to work for the people. And that also with this idea that all what we have, it belongs to the people. And that's, it was wrongly understood. It has been wrongly understood. And I believe it shall be again wrongly continued to understand, because if nobody is telling to the state that you have to respect the rights of the people, the state exists for the dignity of the people. It exists there to make the life worth to be lived. That's very important. And I think this COVID should be taken as a turning point. The freedom of expression should be respected worldwide. Human beings should say that we have these kinds of policies. Human beings should be allowed to say what sort of state apparatus should exist. What should be the connotations of development, they should say. What should be the connotations of the world order, people should say it. They must be allowed to say it. They must not be subjugated. They must be, because they possess the wisdom. They possess the concern. They are the people who have to suffer if you are wrong. And they are the only people who would like that the world at large must be peaceful. Human beings should be dignified. Environment should be protected. And that's how, if you have to shape now the health system at the global level, ask the people. If you have to shape the education system at the global level, ask the people, because I am advocating sovereignty of human rights. There is nothing like sovereignty of any other entity, sovereignty of human rights. The whole world should be under human rights. Any of the states should respect the human rights. And in that sovereignty of human rights, you have to address the human mind, and you have to respect the thought, you have to respect the opinion, and then we will say, yes, anything that's happening is human rights friendly. You are respecting the human being. And I may say here, it's generally said that as we believe, I believe that Allah created human being. And when we read in the Quran and ask Allah, what you have created the human right worth, he says, Walakad karramna bani Adam. I created the human being with dignity, with respect. So even God is accepting the dignity, greatness of the human being. And here we find that where our endeavors are directed to, I think everything must be directed towards the promotion of human dignity. It needs, we have developed subjects of study, sociology, political science, economics, anthropology, and so many. And towards what these methodologies and logies are directed to? Are they trying to analyze the things and then understand the things and then use that understanding that how systems can be promoted for respecting the dignity of the human being? Or are these subjects developed to make one human being worship another human being? No, but actually that's happening. The research is oriented in that direction. The research is being used for these purposes, and ultimately they make one person or one group worship another group. And today the situation is that we find that if we find any of the persons and ask any of the human beings on living on this planet, that to what extent the human dignity has been maintained, to what extent we have attained human dignity, I think all of them will say it's not at the level where it should have been. I think it could be, it could be better. And probably in the minds, we find that this has not become a subject. It's not a subject at all for discussion. And that's how we find that there is a need that the human rights have to be promoted. They have to be understood. Their details have to be worked out. Cluster studies have to be made in different regions of the world, different corners of the world where human beings suffer. My question is, why so many people are in jails in different countries? The fault does not exclusively lie with them. There are reasons. You are giving the theories, poverty theories, this thing, sociological theory and others. Who creates the situations where people become worth to be put in jails? Who does it? Why don't you promote the system? And then what sort of treatment is given to them? And this in this COVID situation, how the people, how the jail and prison population must be residing, we don't find the details coming there. There are so many issues. I would not go much to them. I just had to give an idea, but I am so much in pain about the development of children. Dear friends, by the mobile phone and by at home, the parents can give some education to children, but they cannot do schooling there. When a child has lost the school, who will fulfill this gap? Can anybody do it? Where can the life activities be performed at home as regards the schooling? What will be the future mind? What will be the future organization of the social activities of the new citizens of this, big world? How they will be learning to coordinate, cooperate, collaborate, think together, where from the skill will come. And then definitely that must be addressed on priority. I think all the scientists must put their heads together. Our social science must put heads together at how to fill this gap. The content of the studies has to be reshaped. What should be the content of the studies? And what should be there and what should not be there? What should be the evaluation system? Believe me that we did conduct online examinations. The quality of the experts and skilled workers, doctors, engineers tomorrow, maybe teachers will not be having the same quality as would have been otherwise. This is a big challenge. We will think about it. And then when in normal situations after World War II, we did not develop a very good humanly system at the global level, how will you mitigate now the horrors of the pandemics of this kind, COVID-19? And there is no end seeming to it. Nobody is clear about it. Nobody talks with clarity. Nobody expresses himself with clarity. We find that everybody is unclear, uncertain. What will happen? And then the worst what I found was that the dear ones of a dead patient, they could not perform the last rites for him or her. That was the situation. Should it not move the hearts of the people? Are we living in this world to create the situations like this? Are we not having the wisdom enough to prevent such situations? And then should all that be done only in a dictatorial fashion through lockdowns only? Can we not develop very good systems, human rights friendly systems of performing the tests of the patients, of preventing the transmissions of the disease? Can we not do it? What deliberations have taken place on them? And then I believe that everybody is under a threat, doing things superficially, not thinking with concern, waiting for COVID to go in a month or two, and then, they want that now we will be again back to the same kind of system which was existing there. And what was very prominent there was the greed. We find, a lesson is not being taken. It's not being made the turning point in humanity. There is not a shift from that kind of system to a fair system of development, to the fair system of living the life, fair system of governance and administration, fair system of business. My dear friends, take the consumer and look to anybody and ask your own self as a consumer how you are suffering in this pandemic situation. The fair treatment is your human right. You have to be fairly treated. State has to ensure that you are fairly treated. You are respected. You are not exploited. But then you are suffering. And the only thing is, the moment it is said that a vaccine has been developed, the things will get same to that exploitative system. No, it should not have. The human rights must be given the prime position. The consumer laws must be definitely, trade laws must be human friendly. Industry must be human rights friendly. Education system must give strength to the people so that they can withstand with their human rights. They must be trained in their expressions of pain and pleasure. If human beings suffer and they are not even allowed to speak out, or they have no ability to speak about, or they have no ability to express the answers and give solutions, what sort of education is that, I wonder? And if that kind of strength is not brought in, but let me tell you, all the people of the world, the youth is in anger. You cannot continue with that exploitative system anywhere in the world anymore, maybe for a day. maybe for a decade, but new generations have tested these all things enough. They are likely to emerge. They are likely to rise, and the world may get a different shape where human rights will be holding the prime position, where the dignity of any human being will be getting the prime position. Who does not suffer in this system? Talk to anybody, talk to anyone. Who does not suffer? Who is not feeling that there is not fairness in the system? And then the hope could be the judicial system. And people are fearful of going to the lawyer. People are fearful of going to the court. You have disputes to be resolved. You have reliefs to be claimed. You have remedies to be sought. Where, tell me, if one person is going happily there, my dear friends, because they find it again like a pandemic, is under a threat. He has no hefty fee to pay. He has no long life to wait for a verdict. And he has not also a hope that the system will assure him fairness ultimately. This is, it's an enigma. It needs a solution. How can, without a very vibrant judicial system, you can have the human rights? You cannot have them. Maybe we are training the people who are manning the system, but how? Will legal education not need drastic change? What should be the mind of the lawyer? What should be the mind of the judge? What should be the mind of the administrators of the system? And there, I think it needs a drastic change. You cannot talk of human rights, you cannot talk of human dignity unless you find a fair dealing from a just and fair judicial system. It should be free from racial biases. It should be free from communal biases. It should be free from the monetary considerations here and there. It should be free from those wranglers which catch up, which have taken over the system. And definitely that should be addressed. And at the same time, any administrator in this country, right from the block development officer up to the chief secretary, he does not consider himself that he has to work with fairness. He has the element of administration in his mind. He has to administer, but this administrator must be told by the people who are human rights conscious that you are the servant, public servant, and you have to work for the public. The hefty salary you are getting, the cavalcade of cars is in your office, and behind you when you are on the road is given to you only for this purpose, that you have to be 24/7 for public, and for public only. You have to be fair. There is a law, there is a constitution, is an international human rights regime, and there is the voice of the people. You have to follow it, and you have not to waste the time in office and everything only on your luxuries. You have to work there. That is the human rights conscience which must come up in the people. The people must rise. The people must awaken themselves. They must get to their conscience. That is the voice, and that is the thing that is required. And that's why the human rights were adopted formally in the form of the declarations and convention, that there shall be a human rights movement very strong in the world, and that can mitigate the rigors of the rulers, administrators, exploiters, and so many persons who are otherwise manipulating the things in their favor. Dear friends, a country of 1.3 billion people should have millions of hospitals, because health is a big issue in every country. It is the issue of humanity. And then, where are those hospitals? Where are they? And then how many of them are affordable? What is the question of affordable? It is the government, the responsibility of the government to maintain a healthy citizenry, healthy people. You have to have this system. Where is that insurance system if you want to go the private way? Where is that? Why that is not being put in place? And that's how you have to see that how things must happen in future. My dear friends, please don't sleep again. Nobody will respect your rights. Nobody will respect your life. Nobody will respect your dignity unless you become yourself as human rights conscious. You become dignity conscious. You become conscious about your self-respect. And you learn how to collaborate with others, how to cooperate with others, how to join others, how to be together. Then speak your mind, speak your conscience, speak out your pain which you are suffering. Don't hide it. Say it, you are suffering. Express it. Give it a vent. Give it an expression. Come up, rise. Say it for the sake of your life itself. Otherwise, you are not living. You are not having dignity. You are living with indignity. You are living with inequality. You are living with discrimination. You are living with dishonor. Please make your courses so that you become conscious of it. Your future generations become conscious of it. They do all social and scientific research to bring in the things, develop the devices so that we can maintain human dignity and honor, so that we can run the systems for everybody's good, for everybody's excellence. Please see it. And then if you are not becoming conscious of it, then COVID is not going to fail. It will continue. Another will come. There is behind this COVID a spirit called the evil spirit. That evil spirit is in the minds who do not respect human rights. That evil spirit is making humanity fall. That evil spirit is continuing conflicts on this planet Earth between nations, among us the people, here and there, without any reason and rationality, by arbitrariness, threatening others. And that's how I would say that a very great healthcare system must be developed in every country, and you must be supreme. Let me say, if there is any supreme power or superpower in this on this planet Earth, and says we are having mariners in oceans, we are having fleets of different warships in oceans. No, down with you. You tell us that if you are strong enough, if you are conscious enough that you are providing healthcare system to the poorest of the poor in this world, living in any country, living in any country, are you providing the healthcare system for them, or you are proud of owning the arms and arms and arms? What's all that? I think it has to be seen. That is the prime thing. That is the demand of times. You have to melt all these borders which are, diminishing humanity and which are giving indignity to human beings. That all has to go. You have to respect your own nations and all that, but at the same time, you have to look beyond that. Nobody should suffer anywhere, and especially in your own jurisdictions. And unfortunate, that's not being. I am not here a medical doctor to suggest to you the details of the medicine to be administered to a patient. But I'm here to remind that if you believe in the Creator, then He has said, I created you with dignity. If you are believing in some prophet, He has said, I am giving my whole life to promote your dignity. If there is any avatar, He is saying, I have worked throughout to give you dignity. And then you have to inculcate all that things You have to work for promoting the systems. You have to develop the education system where to be so. You have to develop the healthcare system where to be so. You have to give the administrative system where to be so. And you have to regulate business the way it should be for the promotion of human rights. Human rights are not away from business. Business and human rights should be wedded together. They should be carried out together. Profit making and contributions to the society that way should not be away from the human rights principles. They have to be there. And at the same time, the institutional developments from schools to universities and then courses and ways of imparting or transmitting knowledge, understanding should not be away from the human rights regime. And we have to be very objective about it, very frank about it. You have to speak about it. And if anything you have to attain is that should be human dignity by your endeavors. And then you have different sectors. Somebody is working in the area of women, somebody is working on in the area of workers, somebody is working in the area of transgenders, somebody is working on child labor, somebody is working on environment, somebody is working in other different areas, tribals, and so many. You have to carry with you the idea, the basic idea of human rights, the human dignity, and anything you want to develop, the human dignity should be a part of it. And then develop the skill enough to identify the policies which are pro-human rights and which are anti-human rights, and then have the courage to reject the policies which are anti-human rights, which are not human rights friendly, whether they are national or international, because we do have enough scope to have the human rights friendly policies anywhere at the national and international levels. And that's how I would say there is much to be said, but I believe that it was a general kind of narration I wanted to give it. The narrative can be that all what we are going to develop should be human rights friendly. We should no more be taken by surprise that a COVID is coming and we don't have the healthcare system in place. And a disaster is coming and we don't have a disaster management system in place. And then at the same time, there is happening, and we have gone to the extent that when we are building the business and banking, we find that the business and banking is also failing, and people are feeling quite insecure. They find quite insecure, and they are not living the life at least of some happiness which they could have done even for a few moments. There are uncertainties at all, and that's why this general thing is to be taken, and this should regulate the activities of humans and institutions, whether they are national institutions, departments, or they are global institutions, global level, organizations. And at the same time, it's say one word to non-governmental organizations, voluntary sector, and media. To media, I should say, you are to become human rights friendly. And let me tell you now, when anybody wants to listen to the music, and then to the news, I should say, and when anybody wants to have the news, they don't say, let us know the news from media. They say, let us see what the media is saying. They say this means that they don't take you always correct. You have not won the trust of the people, because you have a duty to respect the human right to have correct information. If you are not giving correct information to the people, you are giving them an undignified treatment. If you are misleading them, then definitely you are, giving disrespect to them. And then definitely you are the worst, then yes, perpetuators of indignity for human beings. You have a responsibility. And then at the same time, I would say that if media performs its duty well, it gives the expression to the human pain and sufferings, then definitely the things can be better and they will be human rights friendly. And I would at the same time say the universities should, orient their research. Their research should be, this directed towards the attainment of these goals. And whenever they examine any courses, whenever they examine any historical fact, they must see that whether we have looked to its human rights angle or not. Management studies, they have to be seen that how modules are developed for management of business or management of affairs, whether they are human rights friendly or not, whether they give due consideration to the human rights or not, that has to be seen. And I would say that legislature should be continuously in session now. They must every day take a stock all over the world. They must take the stock of the things where they have failed to address the human dignity, take care of the things, or they are just serving the purposes or ends of few in positions of authority. No. And then I may also say, go to the extent of saying, in the interest of different nations, that they must shape their systems for nations themselves, not for group of people who can manage the affairs of being in power. No, it should not. It should be equitable. The affairs should be equitable. That serves the national interest. That serves the ends of human rights. That's there. And if that's not done, then definitely you will be a failure. And dear friends, I shall say that again and again, whatever you do, whatever you want to contribute, the persons of literature, they must give good exposition to the human values, to the human rights values, to the constitutional values. And then I'll end here with this idea that all what I said was to give it a turn, that COVID should not come and we will leave it with whys and woes. No, let us take it. It came as a challenge, and then we had an experience, and then on the base of the challenge and experience, we are going to shape our world differently. And what is prime in that is the sovereignty of human rights. Sovereignty of human rights. And that's what is basically required by human dignity and human beings. Dear friends, please, I would like to respond. I would not say answer. I would respond some queries so that we know what you are thinking and what needs to be addressed that way. Please come up with certain questions. The moderator may kindly communicate me the question if they have been typed in the chat box so that I can respond to them.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wani.